mentioned Brian Thomas, and it's a natural segue to the first person that we're going to lead off with this comp episode is Mr. Brian Thomas. Again, for all you folks, we are doing these comps from a large scouting perspective. Eric and I grind a ton of tape. You see a lot of it on Twitter if you follow us on Twitter. And then we're also watching more than we post, especially when you really get into the zone. Like I know for me, like I don't want to take the time to clip something. I'm just doing notes and breaking stuff down. So these comps are from a stylistic perspective, a skill set perspective, roles, traits, also some physical aspects too, right? Like there's a guy who just looks like someone else, or like Eric said, it has the gait or the movement of someone else, that type of style. All of this comes from film study. All of this comes from all the hours and eye bleeding, grinding tape moments that we have. And the first one we have up is Brian Thomas, whose comp is Christian Watson, now of the Green Bay Packers, formerly of North Dakota State.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to watch these guys run when you look at their, again, stylistically, how they run, how they move. They're easy movers, big play, down the field threats. I like Brian Thomas. He keeps his head steady as he's tracking the ball down the field. His tracking is spectacular. It's why he had so many, of those big plays from the slot on those slot fades, his ability to track the ball down the field. Very good body control. As I talked about earlier, he is a former basketball player, and in college, in high school, he scored over 1,000 points in each of his 3 seasons of basketball, named the most outstanding player of his team's state championship team. I do think he's a future X. He is plagued by some of those drops. He has periodic drops here and there, but man, you're talking about easy speed, you're talking about a natural tracker of the ball. Brian Thomas is one of the top in the class, and it's something you talked about earlier as well. His gears,
bro,
don't kick in until you're in that last quarter of the sprint, right? So if you're 40 yards downfield, he hits another gear to take off. And I would just love to see Josh Allen throw it to a guy like that.
Yeah, he's got this acceleration that is just, even if he's naturally running his route or in the stem, but especially like once he sees the ball, like if he's running a post and he sees the ball in the air, he's like, I don't know, it makes me think like when you're like playing fetch with a Labrador or one of those like hunting dogs. And when you throw that ball, boom, they are gone and they are out. And sitting there at basically 6'3", 209 pounds, running a 4.3, 340, a 10-yard split of 1.5. It really is that acceleration paired with that size. Like you can't teach someone to be 6'3", 210 and run a 4.3 40. And you see him here at the bottom of the screen. Like it's just effortless the way he runs past his man.
Right?
And then, like it's just, you shouldn't be able to move like that at 6'3", 210. And it's not clunky. He's also proportioned well. He's not overly leggy or like overly like torso built. He's proportioned well, and you see it in his movement. And when you put him side by side with Christian Watson, like we are here, it's really a spot on comp.
Yeah, watch the speed and gear that Watson hits to turn the corner against the Eagles there. Like, you're not catching him. Like, that stride and ability to glide down the field is just nice to watch, whether it's a vertical play or it's a play that's like that, like a 5-step slant, and you're seeing him take off. Here's another one, bottom of the screen against the Cowboys. This time he takes that inside release. This is called that best release technique. And it's not something that is, used by many players. The players that can do it, one that Bills fans know of, Sammy Watkins. This was something that he was good at, but you got to have speed to do it. So normally you, on these go balls, you want an outside release here. But because of the coverage and leverage of that defender, you see Watson go inside and then stack the defensive back. And you got to have speed. You got to have separation in order to do that. And a really, really nice catch, too, at tracking the ball down the field, right and up over the shoulders. Look at his head snapping back, catching that ball, tracking it, and then getting into the end zone for the touchdown.
Yeah, he looks like a center fielder running down ball on the warning track. And that's something you saw at North Dakota State. And I also I feel like for this comp, for some people, it may seem like underwhelming because Christian Watson hasn't become like a top 20 wide receiver or top 15 or top 10. A lot of that has been injury based. Like when he's been on the field, he has been very good for Green Bay. Like he has been a problem for teams because of that speed. And there you go. There's that best release now coming from Brian Thomas.
Separation.
That's what I was going to say, but even more separation. Granted, we're here at the college level instead of the NFL level by Watson, but just look how easy this is. And we talked about it a little earlier, being able to get off press. This is a press alignment from that corner, more of a soft shoe press instead of a true press, where instead of jamming Thomas at the line, he's more mirroring him on the snap. But you see that corner take that outside leverage And so Thomas just puts his foot in the ground and runs right by him. And what's nice is he has the speed, but because of the size, again, it's 6'3", 210, he's also got a physical presence where he can run through arms and run through shoulders and maintain that gait because he's got the speed plus the size, which equals good momentum for him to be able to move through those corners. And those reps there, those are just due to his God-given talent and ability, which still can play a little bit at the NFL, which is what's exciting because you take a player with that raw ability that you can't teach, and then it's like, okay, imagine what he'll be if we can coach him up more. Like he also does have, you don't see it a ton, but he is able to sink his hips on routes, on hitches and stuff when he's selling vertical. I do think he has lower body flexibility and flexion
Oh
to his
yeah.
game to
Oh yeah.
play with that long speed. I think he does have physical ability and traits that you can coach up that route tree and you can add more to his stem work to make him more of a complete receiver. And the Bills have done that in the past. Granted, they've got some new, guys in the receiver room now, but that's what makes him so enticing as a prospect is that natural, effortless speed plus size and physical tools that he works with. And then it's like, man, imagine if you coach him up and shine him up a little bit, what he can be going forward. And that creates a very, very high ceiling for him and puts him in that true X category.
Yeah, I think he can still add some mass and muscle to that frame.
True.
Obviously, he's still very young. And I do think he needs a attack ball on some stationary routes. So when he's running some of those
Mm,
stop routes, like be QB friendly. We always talk about it. Come back to the ball. Don't just, stop and settle at the top of the route. And with that size and adding some more muscle, I'd like to see him just be a little more physical because he
mm,
has the finesse. Again, he's a former basketball player, so he's got that agility, that finesse. He uses that basketball background to avoid press, and
yeah.
you saw the best release technique. He's very agile.
Mhm.
And there are obviously some areas that he needs to improve. But again, if we're talking end of the first round in striking distance for the Bills, if not just sitting at 28 and he's there. In my first mock draft, I took him, at 28. So if he's within striking distance, I could see Brandon Beane really liking him and adding him because again, and we're going to say it a few times in this breakdown, getting a guy that has the vertical stretch ability is just a plus this year because the Bills
Mhm.
need that role. They need that trait. Obviously, they want to develop a future X, a guy that can do and win at all three levels. I think Thomas does need to improve in some of those areas in the short and intermediate areas, but the capabilities, whether you're talking physically or the skills or traits that flash,
Mhm.
I think he has that ability in the future. But early on, he can still win and stretch the field and have a really high, production rate or a major role in this offense with Josh Allen at quarterback. There's no denying that.
Yeah, he fills again that kind of power forward need for this basketball lineup at wide receiver. And because you have the presence of Dalton Kincaid and Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir and Dawson Knox, and then James Cook in the passing game, but also James Cook in the run game and Josh Allen overall, it allows him to potentially just slide in and, hey, rookie year, man, just be big, strong, and fast and provide this usage and provide this specific role that we need you to fill as you continue to learn some of the finer points and finer details of playing wide receiver at the professional level. And again, that's why that ceiling is so high for him and why it really fits for him to go to a team like the Bills where he may be, quote unquote wide receiver one or wide receiver two, but he doesn't have to necessarily be target one or option one where all that pressure is heaped upon him to be like, hey man, we drafted you in April. You need to clean up everything